Welcome to this week's Hymn of the Week. This week we have ELW 836, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. Text is by Henry Van Dyke, and Henry Van Dyke was an avid fisherman and he loved nature. So this text was written on November 27th, 1907. It originally had 4 stanzas. Here we see 3 stanzas pretty much exactly the same. And there's a story that goes with this. He was, Henry Van Dyke, visiting the Williams College Chapel, president's house at that time. His name was Harry Augustus Garfield. Now that is not the president, James Garfield, but it was his son. And he woke up in the morning, brought downstairs what he created, this text. He was inspired by the mountains. And he made it very clear to Harry Augustus that this really needs to be sung to the tune of Beethoven's Ode to Joy. And promptly, Harry Augustus opened up the hymnal he had and showed him that tune. So that's how that was connected, all by Henry Van Dyke. But of course, Henry Van Dyke had Beethoven's wonderful chorale of what we would say in this case, Ode to Joy or Hymn to Joy. It was composed for Schiller's poem Ode to Joy. And of course, the original Freude schöner Götterfunken tauchte aus Elysium, and it was set for the chorus of the 4th movement of the 9th Symphony. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to that symphony of Beethoven, please take a chance to do that. You're definitely going to need some time, so get a nice place to relax and listen so you can be quiet and really take it all in, that whole 9th Symphony. And when the chorus comes in at the end, it's a very powerful moment. And Beethoven is trying to create this sense of unity. And of course, it really, I think, does come across in that symphony. Anyway, the sketches for this tune were actually started in 1797. So at that time, Ludwig van Beethoven was 27 years old, and he was definitely completely deaf. So it's pretty remarkable that he came up with this, but even the symphonies alone. Now, that being said, we see a great example of Beethoven's use of a small amount of material. He did this quite often. In fact, the 5th Symphony is a great example. That germinal motive just very positively infects the entire symphony. Here he does it with the tune Ode to Joy, and how he does this is he takes the first 5 notes of the major scale, also known as the pentascale, right? G, A, B, C, D, and he basically puts the whole tune almost around all of those notes. Now, while you would think that would be pretty simple to do, it's the harmonies and the rhythms that make it really exciting. Now, that being said, he does break his roll once, if that was a roll he had. In the end of the 3rd line, he drops down to a D, but that is just an octave lower than the 5th, so he's still using 5 pitch names that are basically the same. The form, of course, for this is A prime, B, A prime. So we also have that going on as well. So pretty amazing work of Beethoven really putting this together. So here we go with Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. wanted to, because it's such a great introduction that Beethoven creates in the Ninth Symphony, have such a long building introduction. So I used my colleague's wonderful introduction to Hymn to Joy, Richard Van Auken. So I thank him for that lovely arrangement. Pam Gervais also used some of her ideas, and Hal Hobson as well. Thank you very much for listening to Hymn of the Week.